event. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Welcome to Cititec headquarters. And tonight we are here to talk about equality, diversity, and inclusion in the technology sector and how this is applicable to everyone, not just women, but in particular women, obviously from the interest of the audience. And first off, we're going to be having some amazing talks from great speakers tonight, which you are all in for a real treat to hear all of their expertise throughout the evening. And firstly, I'd like to introduce our founder, Stephen Grant, who's going to talk about what all of these values mean to Cititec. Here he is, Stephen.
Yeah, the turnout's amazing, and a very warm welcome to everyone here from Cititec. This is our event space, Shoreditch Roundabout. This isn't my event. This was organised by the people who work for us, by Caitlin, by Aisha, and they've worked hard to make it a success. And I think the reason they chose this particular topic is because equality, diversity and inclusion, we've tried to make those values ingrained in the DNA of the business. It's served us well over the years and it's contributed to our success. It's been our USP when attracting staff, and in a market like recruitment that's very generic in its offering, it helps you to stand out from the crowd and make a statement to your clients and also to the people who work for you. And I hope that over the years we've lived by those values and provided opportunity to all those who've come through the door and look for work or have worked for us. So we're a business that for many years has been ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and more to the point, we've been equality and diversity assured for the last 9 years. And so this topic, this talk tonight, is not only, I hope, relevant to all of you, but relevant to our business and what we do. Tech is a predominantly male industry, as you know, and to succeed in it is very tough. And as it says on the tin, our topic tonight is women in tech, and I hope you're going to enjoy the speakers we've got for you. And I'm going to hand back to Caitlin to introduce the speakers. Have a great night, enjoy the food, enjoy the drink, and feel free to stay after the event to chat. Thank you very much.
My name is Emma Mulqueeny. I'm hub mum, and I've been a woman in technology ever since I was born because my dad was a massive geek. He was into maths. I used to have to do that for fun, and I learned to code when I was about 4. Not useful coding, as in previously micro. But I had a bit of a dilemma about this. I love cakes very much, and I wanted to come and speak about this. But speaking about women in technology is like the dullest thing in the world to kind of speak about, really, because it's like it has to be spoken about, but you have to find a way to speak about it that isn't just we need more women in technology and how we're going to do this. And so I thought I'd tell you some stories from last year, just for what this world is like for me now, because as I said, I've been in this world from birth. So this woman had the most profound effect on me last year. She's an amazing woman. You wouldn't necessarily associate her with technology. However, that's the hashtag. Carry on. However, last year she sort of threw, I'm sure it wasn't her personally, but anyway, someone decided that she should host a lot of events in Buckingham Palace that celebrated technology and specifically invited women and parents, mothers and fathers. Now, I founded an organisation called Young Revive State, where we find kids that are in their bedrooms teaching themselves how to code. They're quite isolated, bring them together, create a community, do all this stuff with them. I've been doing that for quite a few years. And one of our greatest challenges is that parents are terrified from what the schools are telling them about whether their children, whether they be boy or girl, should actually be programming or should actually be in technology, because there's just like this horrible thing where schools are going, don't go online, it's far too dangerous, rather than giving them the skills. And we kind of know this narrative has been kind of growing over the last couple of years. But what her opening the doors of Buckingham Palace to people like me and people like the Young Rewide State community meant was that parents could come to Buckingham Palace, which is just like the most, I mean, like, I don't know how many of you guys have ever been. Isn't it amazing? I mean, it's amazing. And like, it's just the most amazing privilege. And I would see these parents walking in because of their child, what their child had done, whether that be boy or girl, but they would no longer prevent their child from getting into technology. So actually, what she did by accepting that this was an industry that needed her help was to enable like a generation of parents and people that are kind of stuck in the middle of not really understanding what their kids are doing, to enable the next generation down to do that. And actually making everything normal, making everything okay, making technology not weird and not geeky is the best thing that you can do for technology. For girls, as much as anything else. Because there was a massive lesson that I learned 4 years ago when in the Festival of Code, which is this big thing that I run every summer where all these kids come together, there's thousands of them, and I had like 5% girls. And like I was finding thousands of kids that could code, which was a thing in itself, but every time I just get it in the neck because there were 5% girls. So I was like, right, I will focus on this and I will find more girls. So every time I spoke to them like this, or I'd go and do any press or anything like that, I would say, we need more girls. And I saved it as a present for myself to go and look at those spreadsheets that Kate knows so well and go, how many girls have I managed to recruit now? I had 5, but maybe 20, maybe 25 now. When I did go back to those spreadsheets about 6 weeks later after doing this massive drive to get more girls, the number of girls that had signed up had dropped. And it had dropped because I had shone this massive light on this thing and said, there are no girls here. There should be more girls here. And they were just like, what? I'm not playing. You know, this is not fun. And so at that point then I was like, we have to make what we do normal, exciting, and so we turned it into a festival, and we kind of really thought about the brand. And actually that's what the Queen did when she, obviously I'm not thinking about it probably quite as much as I do, but you know, by making this something that was normal and welcoming and to be celebrated was a huge thing. And so there's something to take away from this where you think about brand and the people that are involved. So last year there was a lot of time running around Buckingham Palace, and then Natalia Bojanova, I got an email about, I don't know, August, September last year saying, would you come and speak to this Russian supermodel? And like, I was like, oh, yes, of course. About her startup, Elby. And so, in truly glamorous fashion, went over to Paris to meet her. And we talked for probably about an hour and a half about her startup, Elby. Now, supermodels and fashion you don't necessarily associate with technology either. Maybe the ringly, maybe there's some, I don't know, wearable technology that you might, but not high fashion. But she is associated with charity, and so it's not such a massive leap. But what she saw was that you could use the digital revolution to actually personalise philanthropy. So how can you actually connect people that want to give $1 or do a drawing for a child with the charities that need that stuff as much as they need the kind of giant fund pots that come in. And so I spoke to her a bit, and we had a great conversation actually, and I loved her vision. There's all sorts of great things that she's going to be doing, bringing brands and all sorts of things over the next couple of years. And then she asked me at the end of last year to come in to be her CEO, which is where I've been since the beginning of this year. So I'm now doing this with her in a completely different world. and speaking to charities and involved with girls and boys. And the people that we're starting to employ in LB, which is 80% female, are kids from young Levi State, boys and girls. So this world is growing and it's moving outside of technology. Don't just go in and program. And it's these stories that need to be told. It's these stories that make the kids want to, if you have an assembly. I mean, I remember an assembly that I had at my school where and it was a careers assembly, and the person turned up in a Porsche, and they kind of got out and they, went up to the front and told us all about her amazing maths career. And so maths suddenly became not just my dad's thing, but it was just like, oh God, you're Porsche. And now I think what we need to do is right, it's good. So like now it's the face that we need to give technology in order to attract the girls. Like you're going into an assembly, look good. If you want to talk to your child or your friend's child, or if you are talking to schools, next week I'm talking to 600 schoolgirls, although I'm terrified. But I'm only terrified, so I don't know what I'm going to wear, because I have to wear something amazing so that they want to be a technologist. So that's the other thing, because I'll tell you why it's important. I'm sure you recognise this man. These are the men that at the moment they have been writing the algorithms that decide what we do, right? They make things quite hard for us. And if you think about it, every time you go into Google or you're talking to Siri or whatever question you're asking, the algorithms are written, and the algorithms that are still being used at the moment have been written traditionally by grumpy, middle-aged, often bearded men, which is fine. But you also need it. You need those algorithms to be written by people like us, who are just like, maybe you don't want that answer to that question, maybe this is what you're looking for. And so actually, the importance of algorithms in the world over the next 20 to 30 years is critical. It's critical. You don't want to tell this to a room full of 600 schoolgirls, I'll tell you that much. But we need to know that it's not just about diversity measures, it's not just about numbers, it's about this, because actually this really does change the world. If you have girls that are out there writing the algorithms, you have girls that want to get into technology, that are building their products, like Natalia is building her LB thing, which is around charity. She's not doing that because she wants to get into tech. She's doing that because she can use these things and she can work with people who can. Because we don't want any of this. We need that. I'm done.
Does anyone have any questions for Emma at all on that fantastic presentation? Yeah, questions. So you can direct them to her husband. That's fine. So any questions for her, or even comments? Maybe things that what you think about that? Everyone's always really shy at this point of the night. I'm the first speaker. There you go. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about this LV?
About it?
I don't know what
it's very new. It's very new. So it launched in November. So at the moment there's an app that's been created, so you can go onto it. There are 3 challenges a day which are set by charities, and the charities have a direct beneficiary. So there is someone at the end. So you've got a child in an orphanage, or you've got a child in a hospital. And then you can either donate $1, just by donating $1, or you can draw a picture, or you can take a photo. So against each charity, there's a challenge for each thing. So, for example, last week there was a boy who was in hospital, very sick with a brain cancer, and he loves Pete's Dragon. And so it was just like, can everybody just draw some dragons, and then the hospital, the charity, print them and put them next to his bed and gets that. So it's kind of direct action, and then also you can donate $1. So you can also, so if you like someone's drawing that they've done, you can also donate $1. But it's just little actions every day. But it's an MVP at the moment. Version 1's coming out at the end of Q1. So you'll see a bit more.
Is there something there that is like, we'll give more money to women, or we want more women? It's just happening.
It's just happening. So I mean, there's 2 ways. There's 2 ways that it's helping. Like LB itself employs mainly women. just because we happen to, and it just happens to be that way. But also our charities are therefore also chosen by women and by Natalia and by those people that are there. So there's a good mixture, but it's not just, we're not specifically bending the gender towards women, but we're just spreading it out so that it's not just, a room full of guys writing their algorithms, doing their stuff. So it's just the fact that you are democratizing everything, so it's available to everybody. But it's a lovely project. So I love it. And if you have an iPhone, you can download it.
Do you think, or how different do you think it would have been to get funding for a startup if the company with a female founder and a female CEO didn't have a well-known supermodel at its head?
She's funding it herself, exactly.
She's funding it herself.
She's funding it herself.
She didn't actually go out and try to get VC funding
Not yet.
for it.
Not yet. That's happening this year and next year. It's very hard. Like I'm a founder myself, so like I've founded 2 businesses. I have a commercial business and I have my not-for-profit. And it is extremely hard as a female founder to get funding. And I'm not a supermodel. I mean, she's a supermodel. She is still going to find it hard, but she's a very wealthy woman. So it's she can kind of backfill. I can't, so when my company, was just like, I can't get it, I'm gonna have to sell my way out of this. It was difficult and challenging, but it is hard. And you sit, and I know it's horrible to say, but you do sit at these tables, and you do talk to these people, and you know that they are discounting your skills.
Only because you're a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even sometimes when you have a woman on the other side of the table, sometimes it's worse.
I think a good call to action from your presentation is kind of for us to get out there and be talking to
Tell the stories.
And be sharing our stories. When you're talking to school kids, how do you inspire them to want to get into tech? Like, what story do you tell them that changes their mind about it?
Anything that is absolutely nothing to do with Ada Lovelace, so that's the first thing. I wear something that is very glamorous, and then I tell them stories about how they can learn to make something that fits into their lives at the moment. So I'll talk about whether it's about enhancing their YouTube videos, or it is pimping their Instagram, or and show them how they can do it, show them how simple it is. So it's kind of lowering the barrier, but making sure that it's something that they can connect to, and then telling them stories of people who have made money or have become famous as women because of what they're doing. There aren't very many of those stories, so you're really digging them out. But normalising, everything and making it as great. So making sure that they want to be that person. I've been to so many schools where they've got technology days, and they're trying to get more girls into it, and they've got people shuffling up on stage, and I don't know, they're just kind of, they look like teachers, and kids don't necessarily want to be the teacher that's standing in front of them. They want to aspire to stuff, and so, but telling the stories is the most important thing. Like these 2 stories that I just kind of like flicked out from last year, there are so many of them, but those are the ones that are the key ones. Yeah.
Sorry, it's not a question, but just off the back of that, because I did it today. STEMnet, Science, Technology, Engineering, Maths, Net. You can sign up to be an ambassador. I signed it today. It's an online form, and then minimum once a year you go into a school.
That's the thing.
And you do stuff. Anyone can do it. They just want to know if you've got science, technology, engineering background. They have to do some checks because you're working with kids. But just Google STEMnet. It's a pretty bad form, a pretty bad website. They're redoing it. It's government funded. It's a charity.
Right.
It's government funded. It's a charity. Anyone in this room can go.
So everybody go and sign up to STEMnet and make sure that whatever you wear is amazing, and you tell some fantastic stories. So those people not the
I think you make a very valid point around creating culture around that, because I work in a big technology company, and it's basically the men that we just put out there. I have no problem with them. I'm very happy working with them, and they're definitely people who are my mentors and coaches. However, the culture around it, I can't identify with, neither as a person with a diverse cultural background, nor as a woman. And creating that culture inside organizations or inside your own company or inside the heads of young girls is essential. Because if you go and stand up and say, oh, by the way, these are the guys you're going to be surrounded with for the rest of your life.
I know.
The fun meetings, like
Yeah.
you're going to like be there for drinks after work, and it's very important because that's the type of motivation that everybody has. And the reason why there's so many men in tech is because they see themselves in tech.
Yeah.
Because it's the people that represent them.
Yeah.
So it's ordinary for them to feel comfortable. I went to a big conference with 7,000, IT specialists, and I was there in high heels, and people looked at me as if I came from Mars.
Yeah.
They said, "Are you sure to work in tech? I want to see my badge." And I think it made me obviously not feel uncomfortable because I'm comfortable with being in tech, but
If it wasn't you,
other
when you were,
people,
yeah,
feel intimidated by it, and like creating that culture, especially for young girls who are looking for something that's fun. And yes, it does start with the fabulous jacket, and great.
Yeah. Thank you. Your culture is key. That's good as a whole other talk. But like in LB, for example, when we came in, there had been like a group of those, and they were, and the organisation felt a bit like it was suffering from PTSD. Because no one really knows how to cope with like an aggressive IT who's like right up against it and they're very cross. And there is going to be a bit of a battle. There is going to be a bit of a battle that we have to fight. That they're not going to acknowledge that they're fighting. And we don't need to kind of be radical feminists about this. It's just that we have to accept that that's there. And you're right, culture is culture and stories. That's the thing. I should probably let somebody else. But yes.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Within our kind of organisation, we went to a coding group now. They've recently implemented a kind of code of conduct to try and help and like make it a comfortable environment for women because it is extremely male dominated and it's very social and some things can sometimes get out of hand. And a lot of the men, when presented with this saying there's going to be a code of conduct, were extremely, there was massive backlash and they kind of refused to identify that there was a problem. How would you deal with that in that context?
It's hard because they won't, and it's and not all of them. Like some do. I suppose it's just like anything. But I think that the thing to do is to accept that there are going to be some people that are always going to be forever difficult for whatever reason, and you have to work with that. And so you have to do what you can for the people that are willing, and then the people that are too challenged by it, you just have to work with them. You just have to accept them because, as you say, like the reality is that they are in these offices, and I don't mean to demonise them. So they're not all the same, but we all know them, and they are in these offices, and people do need to learn how to work with them. And there are just sometimes where you just can't do anything. You just have to work with it. But so long as the culture that sits around it is strong, and you're in an environment where you know that there's HR will deal with anything that is actually kind of really harming you, but actually you need to be able to stand up as a woman and say it's not okay for you to speak to me like that, or it's not okay for you to treat me like that. And signing a code of conduct will go some of the way, but it's not going to go all of the way. I have to
I'm Tony Hislop and I'm a Senior Creative Designer at BuzzFeed UK. So today I'm going to talk about 4 things. Who am I? What is BuzzFeed? What do I actually do? And what is it like to work at one of the fastest growing media companies in the world? So, oh no, it ain't working. Is it stuck?
This one. Ben, I might need your help.
Yeah.
So who's good with computers here? Women in technology, right? Who's good with computers?
So I'm just going to pull my trousers up so I can I've got my belt. So it's going.
We'll try this. Turn it on again. There we go.
There we go. So which one did you press?
This one.
That one. Perfect.
And I do marketing, and I can do computers as well. This is proof anyone can get into the technology industry right there. There you go.
Okay. Shall I start? Right. Okay. Let me go from this bit here. There you go. So today I'm going to talk about 4 things. Who am I? What is BuzzFeed? What do I do? And that place called BuzzFeed. What is it like to work there? So, a little bit about me. This is where it all started. Here's me, aged 3 years old, in my garden in East London. I'm wearing my back cape, pink wellies, and I've just been running around pretending I'm Batman. And this is where I'm at now. Much has actually changed, but luckily I wear a few more clothes. So, one second, there we go. There have been 3 main influences in my life. First up, as you might have guessed, is Batman and comics. So I used to spend hours on end watching Batman the animated series and reading through my uncle's old yellowing comics from the 70s. Next up, the movies. From Rocky Horror Picture Show to The Terminator and The Goonies, the stories captivated me and I always wanted to make my own. I used to create my own stop motion videos with my toys, having been brought up on Ray Harryhausen. Last but not least, video games. Being able to interact with the stories and characters captured my imagination, and it's always been a dream of mine to make a game one day. All of these have one thing in common, and that's storytelling. And that's built the foundations of what I love to do now. Growing up, I thought very differently to other kids. I struggled a little bit with reading and writing, and had different ways to work out sums. Being competitive, I had to work 20 times harder than the rest of the class. So much so that my teachers never actually realised my struggles, as I was always kind of a swot, and I was trying to be the top of my class all the time. It wasn't actually until university that I was actually found out to be dyslexic. I only took the test because there was a possibility of getting a free iMac. And it turned out that I was actually really, really dyslexic. And then everything made sense. Pardon?
Did you get the iMac?
Oh yeah, I've got a got a printer, I've got like some money for like some ink. It was fantastic. But don't worry though, dyslexia can actually be quite fun. I mean, how many of you can say whenever you walk past Top Man, you see Tam. Well, you will now. Okay, so I went to Central St Martin's College of Art and Design, and I graduated with a 2-1 in graphic design and moving image. However, my time after graduating was really difficult. I had a part-time job where, working in a trades counter, and I was stacking cardboard boxes and selling items. I saved up all of my annual leave to be able to do unpaid internships, and they don't really actually lead to anything. I applied for hundreds of jobs, but was always knocked back for not being experienced enough, or my personal favourite, too creative. I actually got told this on 3 actually work in film, and I managed to get a job in post-production as a runner. I was here for 8 months, but that wasn't really me. I was also an office runner for an ad agency. I liked this a little bit more, as I was helping out the designers there, as well as answering the phones and doing general admin. But designing logos wasn't really what I wanted to do either. I got the really soul-destroying news 6 months later that I was being made redundant. And this made me feel like an absolute failure. I've been working so hard trying to build a career, and it just wasn't happening for me. So, desperate for a creative outlet, I revisited an old uni project where I created a video documenting my journey to university. I spent 2 years and all of my spare time reimagining it as an 8-bit game called Rush Hour. I was doing this during my lunch breaks, weekends, and any moment I could, simply because I love to do it. I didn't know how to code, which, hey guys, so I made a trailer to show how a game would play. So I'm going to play the music off of my laptop and hope it syncs perfectly with the one on screen, okay? So bear with. Let's turn it up. Yeah, so this is my trailer here. No, it's not going to work. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to lift my laptop up and hope for the best. Okay, I'm just going to stand here. Sorry for those at the back who can't see. So it's saying to go from here to there. So you've got little Colin here, he's running along the lines, collecting his little coins. So basically you can switch between different lines, and when you do, you've got mini games. So this is called Tube Roulette. Who's played that on the London Eye? This guy is going along, don't forget he's trying to get to Canary Wharf, he's trying to get to work. These guys here, they're on a tube strike, so he can't actually get to his destination. So he's going to have to reroute.
Is this out now? Have you put it online?
Well, the trailer is, but
Again, is it like the same?
I'm working, trying to get it developed, but unfortunately I don't code and it's going to cost quite a bit of money, so... Who's played the game we have to go into? Pardon? Well, he's a difficult guy to pin down. And it's funny you should mention Boris, actually. Oh, who's this coming? It's the big boss of the union, the And you know how you mentioned Boris?
Yeah.
He's going to come in and save the day. Yeah. On his little zip line. Who remembers when he got stuck? So yeah.
Particularly London, you have to tell it.
Great. So my arm's kind of aching right now. I'm literally... Okay, let me catch up to where I am on the presentation. Cool, so I posted that trailer on social media and it quickly got picked up by the likes of the Mirror, Student Beans, London 24 and, most importantly, BuzzFeed. So there's me having just been made redundant and facing unemployment, and no word of a lie, the very same day that I went to sign on for job seekers allowance, I received an email from the editor of BuzzFeed. He had seen my rush hour and commissioned me to make some 8-bit animations summarising the TV show Sherlock. Yeah. So the first couple posted pretty well, so they commissioned me again. This time to create a post for Game of Thrones. So, I made the Game of Thrones 14 most brutal deaths. Who watches Game of Thrones? Okay, so the next slide, if you haven't caught up to like series 4, you might want to divert your eyes as like a huge spoiler. Okay? So I made Game of Thrones 14 most brutal deaths as 8-bit gifs. This article went absolutely viral. It garnered hundreds of thousands of views and traction from scores of websites. HBO actually contacted BuzzFeed wanting to know who I was. This girl who just walked into like jobs, like one of the job centres. They wanted to know who I was. But luckily BuzzFeed snapped me up before anyone else could, and the rest is history. So that's a bit about me, and now I guess it makes sense to explain a little bit more about BuzzFeed. So, BuzzFeed is quite simply a global cross-platform network for news and entertainment. We have 4 main divisions. First up, we've got BuzzFeed Buzz. That's the kind of content that we actually were originally best known for. Listicles of cute animals, humorous content, and quizzes where you can find out which Disney princess you are. Or Cinderella. So we've also got BuzzFeed News. This was created in 2012 when Ben Smith joined. BuzzFeed's made serious investment in foreign reporters and Pulitzer-winning investigative journalists. You may have recently seen about the tennis fixing scandal. That was first reported by our journalist, Heidi Blake of BuzzFeed UK. Then we've got BuzzFeed Life. BuzzFeed Life was actually just an experiment, and without any conscious effort we quickly became the second largest lifestyle site under AOL. And finally, a team of over 100 people in our LA studios focus solely on video creation. They create anything from 7-second vines to documentaries and everything else in between. We now deliver over 3 billion video views per month. Pretty good. Okay, so now you know a bit about BuzzFeed, it makes it so much more easier to explain what it is that I do. As a senior creative designer, I work with clients to create branded content on the BuzzFeed platform. Most will know this as native advertising. I create bespoke illustrations, animations, photography and more to engage audiences and bring a brand's post to life. Here's a few of my favourite examples of work so far. So Transport for London came to us wanting people to be a bit more considerate to each other on the tube. So I created the 11 most annoying commuters in 8-bit. A lot of them are actually from my own personal observations. As like a long-time Londoner, I know exactly what goes on the tube. Comedy Central. They were celebrating Friends' 20th anniversary, and they wanted something special. So, again, 8-bit genius over here apparently, I reimagined the greatest moments from Friends. And yep, of course I included that time when Joey wore all of Chandler's clothes and did the lunges. That's that one in the corner there. Last autumn, Captain Morgan were looking to raise brand awareness with BuzzFeed. So we commissioned a photographer and I art directed this photo shoot for Genius Tips for throwing an autumn barbecue. I actually got to eat all the stuff afterwards. Brilliant. And what I'm most proud of is co-conceiving this quiz for Alzheimer's Society. It was designed to help people see the world through the eyes of someone living with dementia. It starts off like a normal BuzzFeed trivia quiz, but the questions get more and more confusing as you go along. For example, it asks you what time you have your dinner, and it says that the correct answer is 8 AM. And then you go down to the next question, and you have to identify who this person is in a photo, and you're told that it's your sister. The quiz had a fantastic response. Hundreds of comments commending the quiz for how it made people understand more about dementia. This comment here is my favourite. Off to go raise awareness for dementia research. I mean, you couldn't ask for more, really. On top of that, it also won silver at the Media Week Awards. Here's me, dressed as Bruce Wayne, and with my colleague who I worked on this with. I don't think I'm finished, right? There's more, guys. Okay, so what is it like to actually work at BuzzFeed? Well, it's pretty darn cool, to be honest. We moved into a new UK office in Oxford Circus in March. We've hired so much new talent that we've already outgrown it. Everyone wants to do fantastic work, and it's great to be given the room and trust to do so. Plus, we have a huge snack room, which is great, apart from my ever-expanding waistline. However, through all of this, one of BuzzFeed's biggest priorities is diversity. And also I got Batman and Robin in there as well. This is a quote from Jonah Peretti, who's the founder of BuzzFeed. The main point he makes here is that at BuzzFeed we know a diverse staff leads to a huge competitive advantage, as well as being the morally right thing to do. I am very proud to work at a company that sticks by its word. Most people don't actually know, but BuzzFeed UK is run by 2 women. We have Kate Burns, who is BuzzFeed's General Manager of Europe. Her past includes being first international hire at Google as Director of UK and Ireland. She was also the CEO of AOL Europe, where she rebuilt the business into a profitable model. We also have Janine Gibson running UK editorial as editor-in-chief. She is one of the most respected journalists and editors in the world. Her past includes being the editor-in-chief of Guardian US, and she presided over the scoop of the century that is the Edward Snowden story. Both women could have furthered their career anywhere else in the world, yet they decided to run BuzzFeed UK. But what about those further down the hierarchy? In 2015, we officially had more women working at BuzzFeed than men. That is more women working at BuzzFeed than men. You might be thinking, that's pretty damn good. But I bet the majority of managers and decision makers are men. Wrong. In fact, in 2015, 52.1% of managers were women. I find this fantastic for many reasons. Personally, it's great to have a role model. To be able to think that, blimey, that woman there is at the top of her game. That means I can do that too. It's really inspiring. It's also incredibly motivating. It makes me feel that there are less barriers and don't have to worry about that dreaded glass ceiling. I can simply concentrate on doing the best work that I can. All in all, it makes me excited to come to work, collaborate, and ready to do the best work I can for BuzzFeed. I also asked some of my female colleagues about what they thought too. Abby here says that she genuinely feels like she has a voice here, and she's part of a movement. Patricia said it's great to be able to just do the work and let it speak for itself. Amanda says, I feel empowered to be a woman and encouraged to excel as opposed to feeling intimidated. She wants to achieve in this workplace. And lastly, the men and women at BuzzFeed celebrate each other's success, fight for equality, and encourage creativity and individualism. And that is what makes a fantastic team. So that's it from me. There are some really exciting projects coming up at BuzzFeed this year, so please keep an eye out. Feel free to get in touch with me at any time on Twitter and email, and thank you for listening. So I guess this is the point where I ask if you have any questions for me. Have I covered everything? I think that was quite a lengthy presentation, wasn't it? Cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How do you make those? The little animated things, like what tools you use? I can't even begin to imagine how you actually put it together.
So I use 3 different programs. I use Illustrator to actually make the individual assets, so the people and the backgrounds and things like that. And then I bring that into Photoshop to make whole scenes. And then from there, I take the scene that I've built into After Effects and animate little people. Yeah, it's quite complicated, but like I'm kind of getting a little bit good at it now, so I can knock them out pretty quickly. Anyone else? Yeah.
Do you know what is the average wage for men at BuzzFeed and what's the average wage for women?
Unfortunately, I don't know. Wages haven't actually been disclosed or anything. All I know is that in the new year, well, now, HR are making a very conscious effort to make sure that everyone's pay is balanced and people are getting what they should be paid, regardless of gender. Okay.
You mentioned more women than men working.
Yeah.
Is that skewed toward editorial, or is it across all, also in engineering?
It's across pretty much everything. So we've got editorial, we've got commercial, which is the side I'm on, and we've also got the like IT and like services, and pretty much everything is pretty balanced.
Do you get men coming to work at BuzzFeed and remarking on how different and how nicer the culture is from where they used to work?
Yeah, we do. So as you can imagine, the team that I work with are very much sales, and we've got a load of kind of old school sales guys, and they come in and like, it's quite nice here. Like they themselves are finding it hugely positive, just like us women do. Like you don't have to fight each other and be loud and basically whoever's the loudest wins. They benefit just as much as women do.
How do you think BuzzFeed entice candidates to go and work there then? Have they got like unique...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
So how do you think BuzzFeed can like entice their candidates there? They've got like the management types of women, they're getting them equally there in terms of the engineering space. How do they target that workforce? Do you know? Like what's their resourcing strategy, I guess?
Not really sure what the kind of recruitment process is, to be honest. I think we just get a healthy balance of people being interested in us. And we tend to look at the work that people do, and it just so happens that we've got equal amount. But we do make a conscious effort to be like, say for editorial, to be like, you know what, female content is doing much better. You know, who writes good female content? Females. So you know, it'd be good to get one of those, like someone in. But to be honest, if someone's work is really good, we'll get them in anyway. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Live freestyling for the evening.
Just me and my trusty telephone with a few notes. And I know I'm between everybody and drinks, and it's like 8:15, so I'll try and get on with it. I thought I'd give a little bit of background. I really just wanted to tell my story about what I do and kind of my career. I've had 15 years in technology. I'm a chief technology officer now of an investment management firm, so I run a whole technology department of application support, infrastructure developers. Never in a million years thought I'd be doing that. Not quite sure how I got there, so it's a good opportunity to reflect on it and talk to you a little bit about it. My motivation for being here, and I'll let you know about the accent. I'm South African. I was brought up by a liberal family in the height of apartheid South Africa. So I have some very strong personal values about fairness and equality. I feel very strongly that I was privileged to have a lot of opportunity open to me that was not open to a whole lot of other people. And I want to make sure that people are aware of opportunities and that I try to look at inclusivity kind of across the board, definitely not just gender lines. I'm very keen on technology applications. I think it's really important that women are represented in that, and I love Martha Lane Fox's example that, you know, Apple has spent all this money on developing the health kit, but you can't even check when your period's due on it. So they had no women on the team at all. That's kind of a basic thing for the men out there. Some of us worry about it sometimes, you know. Then, also from a commercial angle. So, you know, I've managed a lot of different teams, a lot of different people, and I've without doubt found that every time you got people with different backgrounds, different opinions, different talents, and you get a much better product coming out. I have a very, very self-interested thing. I'm quite new in my role at Newton, the investment management firm, and I'm trying to build up that diverse team. I've inherited a somewhat undiverse team. They're lovely, but we could do with a little bit more input in there. So my background, I went to school in South Africa, girls' school, little brown uniforms, even regulation brown knickers, sorry, it's too much information. And I had a dad who was into computing, so we had computers at home, I did a little bit of coding, and I kind of understood things. Then, you know, vanished into the girls' school, and when I got to, I guess the equivalent of GCSE, was offered the opportunity to take computer science because I was good at maths. Taking computer science meant getting in a car and driving to the boys' school, where it was offered on a Wednesday afternoon, and there were like 3 girls and all these guys, and we were allowed to come along there especially. It felt horrible, very uncomfortable, totally out of place. Persevered with it because it was actually very interesting, but it was a difficult experience. I went on to university and did a joint degree in maths and linguistics, so there's something in there for those of us who do like linguistic world. Did computer science for 1 year, hated it, didn't fit in. There were all these guys who knew all the stuff about Linux, and they were spending all their time in the labs, and it just didn't work. So I carried on with the maths, carried on with the linguistics, moved to the UK to do a 2-year master's degree and met a man. Ended up here 15 years later, 20 years later, and eventually after finishing my PhD thought I'd better get a real job. And while I had been doing my DPhil at Oxford, I'd been doing some quantitative work, and there'd been a lovely technician in the lab who was open and accommodating and explained stuff and made technology exciting and kind of welcoming again. And I think that importance of people being inclusive was something that shaped my career. And he said, oh, there's an opportunity to do a bit of demonstrating and teaching in the computing labs, and you'll make some money. And being a somewhat penny-struck, poverty-struck South African graduate student, I did that and built some confidence there in teaching people. So when I went along to a careers event where they had a sort of technology event, I looked at them and like, okay, I'll do this, what's this all about? There was one woman in the room at the table, all the other men. So I went over and talked to her. She was very nice. She worked at Goldman Sachs and she invited me to dinner and I ended up getting a job there. So there's a big deal about kind of personal role models and people who look accessible that you can actually talk to. So I spent a long time in big corporate technology and I thought I've sort of divided my career up into a number of phases. There was the getting started, and I think my stories from that time are, okay, I was a developer and I joined as an application developer on this floor, full of men, and two sort of events from the first couple of months that stand out in my head were the man who brought in the post came to me, to give it to me, because clearly that's what I did. I wasn't a developer, I was the administrator. Now there's nothing wrong with administrators, but I wasn't the administrator. And the other opportunity thing was a lovely guy actually who had no idea there was a woman on the floor now and managed to strip entirely to change out of his motorbiking gear into his work gear and then saw me and died of shame. I was somewhat embarrassed as well, but he felt worse about the whole experience. So, again, it takes a while when people are not used to having women around, and those are just kind of interesting experiences. But I learned from that the confidence, the ability to connect with people and say, well, I don't do that job, but I'm happy to help you, and here I am. And get used to being, often a lone woman in a room. It got better, and we had diversity policies and included people. I also was involved in setting up our Women in Technology network. And that was again, asking the question and then being brave enough to do it. I reached out to our diversity guy and said, can I join your women's network? And they said, we don't actually have one in Europe yet. Would you like to set it up? And I had that, if not me, okay, all right, I'll give it a go. And it was a great opportunity to connect with people in other divisions and learn and connect those few people who were feeling a little bit isolated and say, we're okay, we'll support each other and we'll work through this. And I think I also discovered at that time that many of the guys who joined on my graduate program had as much trouble kind of getting used to it and finding their voice and being heard. So there's growing confidence in the career. I then had a phase of becoming team leader, and I had to move from having had to be quite loud and quite aggressive to realizing that I was now overplaying it, and now that I was in a position of authority, I kind of needed to tone it down a little bit. So that was an interesting experience for me. So how do I adapt my style based on my role and fit into the corporate workplace? I then hit the fun of motherhood. So I had 2 children, and I think flexibility was really important. Reprioritizing, figuring out how to manage my time, how to deal with it, how to manage, where I was, and realize that I was being quite efficient at work, and it was all okay, and kind of balancing things out. There was quite a long period of time, I think, and I think it's quite important to understand and reach out to other people and figure out that being flexible is absolutely fine, and that you can learn from others and their experiences. I did work from home stuff, I flexed my hours, I did all sorts of things. Also have a very supportive partner in my husband, thank goodness, because it's important. You need the support and role models all around you to keep going. Coming out of that, I started running bigger teams and global teams, and started to realize the importance of understanding cultural differences, not just gender differences, and the diversity that those teams bring to improving products. It was a very interesting career. Then about a year ago, I decided, okay, enough now, I'm going to take a leap out and move out of a big corporate into a smaller company and take the CTO role. And oh my God, I agonized about it. And all my friends were like, it's a great role, you're going to run the team, it's an opportunity, they're going to pay you more, probably more flexibility, what are you even worried about? But I wanted to share with everybody that all of us, when you try to make these changes and leaps, have that, can I really do that? And I think women are quite bad at the interviewing stage often, not always, some guys too, I have to say. But well, these are the reasons I can't do the job, as opposed to, hey, I can do a lot of it. And I think we always need to get beyond that and think about, well, it doesn't matter that I can't do all of it, I can probably bring enough to the table that I'll help. So taking the new role as Chief Technology Officer in a very different organization, very different size, was scary. But great, because I realized that actually it's just about people. It's the same problems in different places. What are our requirements? Who are the people working? How do we build teams? How do we prioritize? How do we work through things? And the role has been very, very interesting because, quite honestly, it's a technology organization that lost its way a little bit. And injecting new talent, different ways of interacting with our business, kind of changing my teams, getting people to look externally, bringing new ideas in, and making sure that instead of being quite insular, which asset management, bless it, can be, we actually really kind of reach out and connect with people, which is one of the reasons I'm here. I have these very odd experiences kind of every couple of months where I go to the Chief Technology Officer forums, and it's all the same men who've known each other for 50, and they've all had each other's jobs. So I'm like the weird person who turns up, but they've been very welcoming. Oh, great, there's somebody new to talk to. So, again, I think not being put off by the people that are there, but kind of finding your way and realizing, they're all people and they're all people I can connect to and talk to and build connections with has been quite important. So I guess throughout my career as a manager now, I've managed people in a whole lot of different situations, and I think on the theme of equality and diversity and inclusion, I wanted to mention that. So, everybody carries something with them. It might be something around our gender, it might be something around our ethnicity, it might be our cultural background, it might be our health, it might be our families. Just off the top of my head, I manage people with heart disease, relationship breakups, relationship formations, infertility, miscarriages, anxiety and depression. The list will go on and on and on. And all of us have these different burdens in our lives. And I think one of the things we need to think about is think about inclusivity. You don't know where somebody's coming from. And I think one of the ways we can be more inclusive in how we work and how we form our teams is to try and look for the best in that person, even if they're behaving in that very peculiar way about not wanting to sign that code of conduct. There's something weird going on in their lives, but how do I try and find the best in that person and bring it out of them and get them to contribute and be part of the team? And on a practical note, I believe in post-it notes. So I'm heavily in stationery. I found that it's a wonderful tip when working with big technologists. The loud ones have to shut up when they're scribbling all the stuff they want to say on the post-it notes, and the quiet ones have the opportunity to sort of think about it and put something down. So my team, every time I have a meeting now at my group, they'll bring their post-it notes along. And it's a way that we try and get everybody to contribute to what we're doing. So I'm going to stop because I could go on forever, but I just wanted to give you a taste of a life in technology so far. I hope it will continue. Happy to take any questions you like about tech, financial services, careers, diversity, whatever. And I know there are also drinks and snacks.
Sure. I noticed you touched on it a little bit about kind of being your own worst enemy, where you think, oh, I'm not really good enough for this, I shouldn't really do this. And I attended a talk like months ago, and all the ladies there were like, that's literally the problem with women. That is our actual problem. We don't put ourselves up for these roles because we think we're not good enough. And if the guys say that as well, like I've met guys who have talked to me and they've said, you're really good at the job, but you just don't want to put yourself out there because you're so worried. And I think that's something that girls don't really realize. We don't know how good guys are at blabbing their way into roles. Because they just show up and they're like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, totally. They can't. And we need to actually be able to do stuff like that. I think personally that's my goal this year, to apply for a job I can't do and get it.
It's not a job you can't do. It's a job you think you can't do. Of course it's a job you can do.
Yeah, but I think that's something that I heard that is a massive issue with people who are actually we're well educated, we know our stuff, we just don't think we're good enough.
Yeah, and I think, again, it doesn't apply absolutely to every woman across the board, and there are some men who are like that too, but there is a bias and there is a socialization amongst girls in our sorts of cultures where, again, you're always patted for behaving well, and you always want to get 100%, so you don't necessarily want to take the risk and do something wrong. I have 2 little boys. I'm constantly telling them off. So they're totally used to the fact that they can't sit still, they can't clean up their room, they can't behave. I look at the little girlfriends who sit there tidily and do everything beautifully. And we are kind of culturally brought up in different ways, so there is that bias. And you do have to constantly tell yourself as a woman, that little chimp on your shoulder who's saying you can't do it, try and just focus on the stuff you can do. It doesn't matter, most people can't do everything. But I think you can grow and bring the comments, there are things I can do. And I love the New Year's resolution. Think of the things I can do, and tell yourself that, and remember what you do bring. And you learn. Each role needs to have some challenge and some growth in it. So you don't want to be able to do everything. Otherwise, why would you take the damn job?
Hi. Quick question about obviously you sort of progressed through the ranks very successfully. My question is, how have you found dealing with members of the opposite sex, where you're obviously in a position of power and you're sort of managing them? Have you struggled with that? Have you found sort of resistance from your subordinates, if I can use that word, because you're a woman?
I think more of it would have been in my head than with others, but I'll start. So the very first time that I had to manage a team, they were obviously all men at that point. It was a while ago. But what bothered me more at that point was I was managing someone who was substantially older than me. So I had more of a worry about, well, hang on a sec. This guy is way older and he knows more than me. And I remember I had a female manager at the time, and she said, I think you're going to need to get over that, because that's probably going to happen again and again. And I did struggle to think about, how do I do this? And I think what I learned early on is that, you know, the strength of the leadership and the management is listening to people, helping them articulate what they're trying to do, and then having their back. And I learned really the power of just sort of supporting people and saying, I'm behind you, you're the expert. And I'll help you get what you need done, but you kind of tell me what needs doing. And I think that, you know, men and women respond well to the fact that I'm really there as a team leader and then as a manager to facilitate what they want to deliver and do, and that I have their back. There's a bit of building credibility, and there's a bit of, okay, you know, there's a line. My favorite ever performance review was where someone said, she's really nice and smiley, but you wouldn't want to mess with her. That's exactly how I want to come across, so something worked. But, you know, I've been building credibility, asking questions, making sure that you respect people. I think if you think about your managers, you quite like it when you know something more than them and you actually teach them something and help them. So, you know, that's okay. And it's just saying, I'm here, what are we doing, how do I support you and help you? And this is what my job is. It's a bit like the servant leadership in Agile.
So you talked about having children, having a family within your career.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times in the interview process, not only are women going in already thinking of the list of things they can't do, or the things they can do, the kind of elephant in the room, especially when it comes to your wage and how much you should be paid for that role, is maternity leave, and how much maternity leave is going to cost the company, and do they use that as a legitimate way to pay you less than a man in an equivalent position. One thing I found out recently was that Sweden had optional paternity leave of 3 months, which they made mandatory. So every man who has a child has to take 3 months off work. Not only did the men prefer it, but it actually put women on a more equal footing with men because they had enforced paternity leave. And I was wondering, because you've had a lot of experience very, very high up, that for any of the organizations that you work for, if you wanted to implement across the company mandatory paternity leave, how possible would you think that would be?
I have no idea if that's even legal or not. I'll look to my Microsoft HR compatriots or not. I don't know the answer to that, but I do firmly agree with you that the conversation needs to move from being about women to being about parents. You know, my husband loves the time he has with the children, and if we just focus on this whole child rearing thing being a female problem, we're kind of missing out. And all of these men with their young children want to be involved and feel that they can't. I had a very something that really struck me early on in my career is we had Goldman did a very cool panel, which did this Microsoft, they did Goldman couples. And they did men and women who married to each other, and in fact it was dual careers. How do you manage the dual career family? It's hard enough, and you look at a lot of the successful people, a lot of successful women have a husband who doesn't work, and vice versa. And I remember the question being asked in the panel saying, how has having children impacted your career? And the woman said, well, you know, it hasn't really, and I've worked very hard, and I've been flexible, and I did more hours, and it's all been fine. And the man said, it's totally screwed my career. You know, I can't work nearly as much as I wanted to. And I think if you dig into it, you see that, you know, it does impact people more, and moving the conversation on that way is where we need to go. So I don't know how we could do that particular thing, but getting that cultural acceptance of male involvement and giving flexibility to men is absolutely key.
You talked about finding a new, quieter voice when you moved up management.
I'm working on that.
Yeah. How did you find the balance between that loud voice and then the quieter one, and the image of the women in tech when we speak up, we're either viewed as emotional or a raging keyword. How did you kind of find the balance and got over that image for you and from your colleagues?
I'm sure I haven't solved it completely, but fortunately they don't tell. Actually, when I joined my new company, Newton, one of my new direct reports as a senior manager is a very straightforward guy, and he said, after about a week he came and he said, we thought you were going to be Margaret Thatcher, but you're not. So I did something there that sort of worked for him. I'm not really sure, but I did get my handbag out. You know, I think it's trying to always figure out what the end problem is and what the common goal is that we're trying to solve. So whenever you get those situations of conflict or that emotional piece or the challenge, you know, bring people back and saying, okay, but we're all trying to deliver X, or, you know, and there is, if you're in a common organization, you're always at least trying to improve the profitability of the organization or the product. And so if you sort of make it less about you and more about that end goal, people can move beyond the sort of style difference and focus on the actual problem you're trying to solve. And I think that is often a tool in that situation. Just hang on a sec, we all agree on this, now, you know, moving people forward. In terms of personal style, you know, it's difficult, and it's trying to read the room and figure out where you're at. And I have used friends and mentors and colleagues to say, you know, stand on my foot if I'm talking too much, or, you know, help me out here, or help me get a word in edgewise, depending on the audience. And that's something I sometimes can offer to other people who work for me, to give them that introduction to help them do it. And it's about getting feedback, isn't it, as well, how it came across, and trying to be self-aware. And judging people's reactions, but I wouldn't say I've got it sorted completely. It's a journey.
Thank you.
Sure, at the back.
Hi. First of all, I would like to say that it's quite inspiring that you're a CPO of a company. I think it's not very common, and it's great to see it here. Another thing is that do you take personal interest in making it?
I'm here because I take a huge personal interest in it. The diversity in my current team is horrible. I inherited it. I mean, they're great. Well, they are diverse. There are all sorts of different folk in there. But the gender balance is very poor. So, you know, I've managed to add 1 or 2 people, but it's hard work finding women, you know, who want to come in and have the right skills. Again, we can't just hire somebody. They have to be successful. They have to pull that weight, and, you know, they have to want to do it. So it's a work in progress. Newton itself has a female CEO, which is fabulous, but she's a superwoman. She has 9 children, and she does all sorts of things. So I find that probably just a bit too scary for me. There's something in between that's maybe a little bit easier to aspire to. But, you know, I mean, honestly, it's the reason I'm here. It's not easy. I work very hard at Goldman to build diverse teams. Sometimes really successfully, sometimes made hiring mistakes because you just take that extra chance on someone to see how it works. And then continue to try. Anything else? There's a couple of people who had to leave. We are past 8:30. I'll wrap. I'm available to take any questions you talk to. Thank you for listening.